When some people heard the third movement, they felt that the music was cool and pleasing to the ear. Just as when Zoro heard it for the first time, he felt the music could heighten the scene's atmosphere, complimenting him in the process. However, when old General Renault listened to it, the music did not lift him, rather, it stirred a sense of sorrow. There was a saying, music only furnishes the ambience. Every listener only hears his own story. This saying was exactly what old General Renault was going through. Regardless of what the composer was thinking about when he'd created this music, when old General Renault listened to the music, all his past experiences came flowing back to him. A long time ago, when old General Renault was still young, he'd taken part in many military campaigns. These military campaigns were not known to the masses because they had taken place on another planet. The 100-year period of destruction had left Earth bare and lacking resources. At the rate the new era was developing, lots of resources were needed. The resources on Earth would have been exhausted before long, and that would have led to the real end of the world. Hence, there had been a need to look for resources and materials outside of the planet. It was no easy task, but somebody had to do it. Few people knew the terrible price that was paid for all the glory of the thriving new era. How many lives had been lost in the unbounded universe, on foreign planets where the remains were never claimed. Recently, he kept remembering his comrades who had traveled to a distant planet together with him. If they had not perished, they would certainly have a standing equal to his. Hearing the familiar sounds of guns and machinery unconsciously brought him back that period. The soundtrack directed his thoughts toward the desperate scenario he had wished to forget. People loved exalted heroes. Movies and films had no shortage of sparkling superheroes, but he rarely watched those. No matter what righteous mission they were given, no matter how valiant or great they were in reality, heroes would bleed and heroes would die. He had watched and read enough films and books regarding heroes and heard many songs praising heroes. But all of them were flawed. They might have depicted war, but they shied away from the true image of war. The cruelty and irrationality of war, the cost of lives, was all but neglected. Regardless of the glory or destruction, heroes were glorified while the normal man was swept aside. Heroes, whether in real life or real life, were just but a small part of humanity. The other end of the spectrum was overlooked. For every victory, there were always those that went through the sorrow of losing a family member. Because of these reasons, old General Renault could not appreciate real art. Perhaps he was old and was unable to keep up with the times. Maybe the younger generation reveled in the beautiful world without sorrow and anxiety. Perhaps only those who had been on an actual battlefield would understand the implications of war and the cost of lives. With a deep breath and another long sigh, the old master spoke. "You did well finding this soundtrack." The kneeling Zoro widened his eyes, doubting his own hearing. Was the old master actually praising him? Zoro was astonished that the old master was interested in this piece of music. It was at this moment that he realized that it was upon hearing the soundtrack that the old master was so moved it triggered something. That meant the old master's tears were not from anger but rather because of the music. He had gotten beat up for nothing. Still kneeling, Zoro glared at his father. Upon making contact with Zoro's barely recognizable and bruised face, Zoro's father let out a light sigh and turned his head away. The other elders in the room were also slightly awkward. Who would have thought that the old master's condition was a result of him listening to a song? They had nearly hit Zoro themselves, but hearing that the old master's condition was stable, they had controlled themselves. Luckily, they had saved themselves from an even more awkward situation. "Who is the composer for Mission?" the old master asked. I don't know." Zoro felt the piercing stares of the few elders in the room after his reply. He winced and continued on. Really, I don't know. The composer is someone in Yanzhou. Yanzhou Sci-Leveler Wing Media. They didn't tell me who the composer was. But that composer has 2 other works before Mission. Great-grandfather, let me source them out for you to listen. SSS. At the end, he let out a little sound like a hiss. Zoro's father clenched his fist. He could tell right away what that little punk was trying to pull off. As expected, hearing the SSS, the old master turned his chair around and saw the bruised face of Zoro. Startled, he asked, "What happened to you? Stand up. What are you kneeling down for?" He had been deeply immersed in his memories and had not noticed his surroundings. Only now was he fully awake. Zoro got up, massaging his knee and wincing as if in pain. "Father hit me. It hurts." At his age, old General Renault could have guessed. He laughingly said, "You deserve it." What's similar to God of War? Far from it. He could tell from the look of it that Zoro was only suffering some bruises. A little discipline would be all right as a deterrent for the young punk. Zero gave a cheeky laugh. Acting coy and cheeky was what made him so endearing to his grandfather, the current governor of Lizhou. Zero's father rolled his eyes. Of all the things to learn, this little brat had learned to act like this. Zero was an expert at currying favors with the elder generation, yet he knew when to draw the line. Too much flattery would make him annoying. Thus, he showed some restraint. Great-grandfather, do you want to listen to them? I can get the other 2 pieces and the complete mission for you. With that, he glanced at the personal doctor beside the old master. He did not want the old master to lose himself and cause an incident again. The personal doctor chuckled. No objections. For humans, releasing pent-up emotions was beneficial. The old master tended to bottle up his feelings and regrets, storing them in the deep recesses of his heart. After many long years, the scars and pains deep in his heart were a lot for him to bear. Crying it all out was as if letting his spirit finally relax. Just that this had been a big scare for him. Anyone who had seen the old master in that state would have panicked. Having received approval, the bruised and battered Zero happily ran out of the room. Watching the scene, his mother thought that her child had suffered brain damage from the beatings. It's all right to be a little lively. The old master chuckled as Zero went out. He meant the words for everyone in the room and specifically for Zero's father to hear. What could Zero's father say? He could only flash a smile and nod. That child had already grown up this way, how much could he change? As long as Zero refrained from outrageous activities, they also did not need to keep him on a tight leash. In a short time, Zero brought the full copies of Divine Punishment, Cocoon Breach, and the original mission to the old master. It is even better when watching the music video. Let me help you set it up. Although Zero said he was helping to set up, he was actually directing the security personnel and the servants to do the work. After all 3 music videos had been played, even though the old master was not as shaken as before, his eyes were all red and misty. An excellent piece of art. A few of those in the room gave their surprisingly good reviews. Zero's father muttered, how does this not belong to Lizhou? Whichever continent's composer, being able to produce this sort of music deserves respect, the old master said. Music like this that was capable of evoking emotions could transcend politics and time. Having finished watching the music video, Zero was chased out of the room by his father. The door was closed as the Renaults inside discussed important matters. After Zero exited the room, he did not bother to check on his friends who were still under the watchful eyes of the security personnel. Instead, he called his agent. Receiving the call, Zero's agent immediately relayed the good news regarding the showing of God of War at the box office and its rave reviews. Before he could ask about what had caused Zero to be uncontactable, he was interrupted by Zero. I don't give a FCK about any of that. Contact sci-fi Wing Media right away. No matter how much it costs, purchase the copyright for mission. Remember, I want the full copyright. Zero's agent was shocked. Although the soundtrack was great and gave the movie extra points, was it worth it to spend another large sum of money to buy it? He wanted to ask what had happened within the Renault family, but before he could speak, Zero had already hung up. At the moment when Zero's agent contacted sci-fi Wing Media with the intent to purchase the copyrights, Duan Qianji received a call inside the headquarters of sci-fi Wing. A rough voice came through the line. Dear wife. Hearing this, Duan Qianji wanted to sever the call. She knew that every time she heard this tone, there would be a troublesome request. The new song mission that your company just released, leave it for me. Don't ever sell it. What? Didn't you have no interest in music? Duan Qianji asked. I don't have interest in other music. But I really like this series. Especially the 3rd movement. Make sure to leave it. Yanzhou's military is planning on expanding. We have shot a publicity film and are hoping to use the music alongside it. The theme song for a recruitment drive had to project a commanding presence. It couldn't be soft. It also had to be hefty. Naturally, Duan Qianji's husband, Major General Honglu, was clueless about music and couldn't tell the difference. But others who belonged to the Yanzhou military command could. They had spotted a gem, and when they noticed it was a sci-fi Wing release, they sought out Honglu. You had to save the good stuff for your own. Even though she stood to suffer a loss, given that Honglu had asked for the song specifically, Duan Qianji decided to keep the rights of the song within her home continent. The song was noticed by the Yanzhou military command and slated to anchor a recruitment drive, which meant the series was quite popular. Even if the masses didn't like the song, as long as the military did, that was a good thing. Sci-fi Wing had to borrow equipment and locations from the military for its film productions every year. Now the military wanted something from them. It was good to do this favor. There would be less backlash the next time they wanted to borrow equipment from the military. After hanging up with her husband, Doon Qianji asked her assistant, "Any word on the fiery bird poll?" Voting has started in Huangzhou. Voting in Yanzhou might be held off until Memorial Day. The online poll of virtual idols for the fiery bird endorsement deal was actually organized by Rising Dragon, a world-renowned gaming publication. It had nothing to do with fiery bird, but it received quite a bit of attention globally. Given that Rising Dragon was a media outlet from Huangzhou, voting naturally kicked off in Huangzhou. The voting order of the other continents was determined randomly by computer. By custom, voting in all 12 continents took 3 months. Fiery Bird was scheduled to finalize its virtual idol endorsers for all continents by May. Typically, Fiery Bird consulted Rising Dragon's online poll before making their decisions. Most of the time, the top vote-getter in each continent was awarded the endorsement deal. Rising Dragon typically completed voting for 4 continents in a month. Yanzhou was the 6th continent on this year's list, scheduled for early February. Send word to Feng Zhao to try to complete the last movement before New Era Memorial Day and aim for a February 8 release, Doon Qianji ordered. January 28 was New Era Memorial Day. The period of destruction ended and the new era began on that day 500+ years ago. It was a day celebrated worldwide, the most important festival in all 12 continents. The occasion was typically marked by a holiday of at least 7 days. The exact length of the vacation was determined by individual companies in each continent. Sci-Fi Wing gave its employees a week off, although entertainment industry types could never really take a vacation. They were typically busy hitting the road and attending various celebratory events in different cities. It was the busiest time of the year and the most profitable. Even if you ordered them to take time off, they wouldn't be willing. Celebrities who rested during this period were either ill or out of favor and couldn't swing a single invitation. Doon Qianji wanted to ask Feng Zhao to attend a few events with the Polar Light Project team to boost their profile, but she eventually decided against it because she was concerned about the progress of the 4th movement. The most important thing now was to focus and complete the 4th movement with a flourish. Memorial Day celebrations were secondary. An even more crucial endorsement deal was up for grabs after Memorial Day. That was of greater importance to Sci-Fi Wing. As for Ming Kang, the deputy head of the Yanzhou Music Association, Doon Qianji had given him a heads up. After the 3rd movement was released, Ming Kang had posted an emotional video on Yanzhou's largest social media website. It was impossible for him to be unbiased because of his son's illness, so he couldn't post comment on the official website of the Yanzhou Music Association. He could only speak in a personal capacity. Ming Kang was still quite moved, but compared to his response to the 2nd movement, he seemed in better spirits. His cheeks were flush. The jaded look brought on by his son's condition had disappeared. He wore a bright smile. Ming Yi's condition has improved. His medical team is following up. His attending doctor says that the series clearly has an impact on the whole virus, but only the entire series, the 4 movements altogether, qualifies as a full course of treatment. A breakthrough probably can't be expected until the full treatment is completed. I'm looking forward to the 4th movement. Thanks again to Polar Light and the Polar Light Project team. Doon Qianji's concerns had vanished after she watched Ming Kang's video. Quite a few hospitals in Yanzhou had already dubbed the 100-year period of destruction series the whole virus treatment tune. From a business perspective, once research had proven the series' efficacy in treating the virus, the sky was the limit. Tell Feng Zhao the priority is quality. Now that he has completed 3 movements, the 4th movement will be easier. As long as the quality is there, everything else will fall in place. All he has to do is focus on completing the series. As for marketing and other matters, tell him not to worry about it, Doon Qianji ordered her assistant. Then, what about our client in Lizhou? The assistant asked. Tell them that the rights to the 3rd movement have been sold. Lizhou. Zero's agent relayed Sci-Fi Wing's message to his client. What? The rights have been sold. They don't want more money. Zero was furious. The agent nodded vigorously. 10 million for a song could be written off as Senior Master's one-off indulgence, but as for sweetening the offer, he would be cautious. Zero had ordered him to spare no expense in buying the full rights to the song, but as the Senior Master's bookkeeper, he would never spend more than 50 million on a song. In his mind, it wasn't worth it. It was uneconomical and irrational. So he could finally rest easy when he got word from Sci-Fi Wing. Sci-Fi Wing are adamant about not selling us the rights, the agent said. Then let's poach the composer. We can't, Sci-Leveler Wing has done a good of keeping him under wraps. Even folks in Yanzhou have no idea who he is. The agent was in a tough spot. Poaching talent was harder than buying a song. Sci-Leveler Wing was no fool. You could tell by the way they guarded the composer's identity. Businesses acted out of self-interest. Every move was calculated. Sci-Leveler Wing had to have bigger plans in mind. But that was the purview of the music industry. They were just making movies for fun. They wouldn't be affected. They were also from a different continent. In the worst-case scenario, they could buy another song from Sci-Leveler Wing next time. Then let's poach him when he unmasks himself. Aren't there 4 movements in total? 3 are already out. The 4th will be released soon. Another thought struck Zero and he started laughing. It won't be long. Sci-Leveler Wing wants Polar Light in the running for the Fiery Bird endorsement deal. Online polling had started in Huangzhou already. Leveraging his status as a Renault and the favored grandson of the Lizhou governor, Zero had learned from a Rising Dragon source that Polar Light was Sci-Leveler Wing's candidate for the endorsement deal in Yanzhou. We can afford to wait. Zero kicked up his feet. What's the latest score for God of War? It's 5.3 now. What about King of Snipers? 8.2 inches. Ha 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 ha. Zero started laughing with no regard for decorum. His agent flashed a cynical smile too. Why were they so happy? Because the rating for God of War was rising while the score for King of Snipers was slipping. In 3 days, the second film had lost 0.4 points. It was an alarming rate of decline for the critically acclaimed movie. The following comment had appeared online. I don't know why, but when I was watching King of Snipers, all I could think of was the song that played during the final battle scene in God of War. Actually, the score for King of Snipers isn't bad, but in contrast, after watching God of War, it lacks punch. It was like having a heavy dish and then trying one that was lighter, of the gourmet variety. There was bound to be a difference. Many fans searched online for the soundtrack for God of War. There were calls for wireless media to release the song played during the final battle as a single, but the studio never responded. Eventually, someone discovered that the memorable song was part of a series performed by a virtual idol over in Yanzhou. Yanzhou. They actually used someone from Yanzhou. What's the name of the virtual idol? What's the name of the song? Let me check. Polar Light from Yanzhou, and the song is called Mission. It's the 3rd movement of the 100-year period of destruction series. Oh, the first 3 movements are available for download in Yanzhou for $1 a pop. Wow, copyrighted music is actually available for download in Yanzhou. Us music fans in Lizhou can forget about it. There were many jealous fans in Lizhou. Copyrighted music in Lizhou was usually made to order and appeared only in ads and videos. They were not available for download. If you wanted to listen to a copyrighted song, you had to watch the ad or the original video, unless the record label released a single. The quandary made many think about Zero, the senior master with little restraint but plenty of cash to splurge. Have Senior Master Zero buy the rights to the song. Actually, have him buy all the rights to the song. That way we can listen to it. Zero read comments along these lines, thinking, I want to buy the rights too, but Sci-Leveler Wing ain't selling. While the song generated quite a bit of interest online, not everyone was willing to watch God of War just to hear it. Mission could not be sampled in Lizhou. Even if the Lizhou fans managed to log into a streaming website in Yanzhou, they could only play the first 2 movements. Sci-Leveler Wing had blocked sampling of the 3rd movement outside of Yanzhou. Just when Lizhou fans thought they would never hear Mission in a context other than the movie, a video started circulating online. It was titled A Mission Calling, the Earth-Shattering Army of Yanzhou. The Yanzhou Military Command released rare footage of its 3 divisions taking part in drills and engaging in combat. The cinematography was slick and explosive, especially the Air Force footage, which projected power and elegance. And the score was a magical touch. Anyone who watched the video would be burning with passion and inspired to fight. The video generated heated discussion online. Many folks compared it to the recruitment videos in their own continents. They realized that their videos were visually okay, but somehow, they paled in comparison to the Yanzhou video. Folks in Rongzhou were genuinely pissed off. Earth-shattering. Have you forgotten about Rongzhou? The planet's 12 continents were split into 8 main continents and 4 special continents. Yanzhou was one of the 8 major continents, populated mostly by civilians. Rongzhou was one of the 4 special continents, home to the world's largest military base and the headquarters of the Global Military Alliance. The entire continent was under military-style management. Most of its residents were descendants of soldiers. All local schools, from the primary level to university, were structured in the manner of military academies. Rongzhou was widely considered the most powerful continent in terms of military might. That was why people in Rongzhou were miffed after the Yanzhou recruitment video went viral. Mission calling my ass. It's a FC King propaganda video, pure and simple. Just cut to the chase. If you want to brainwash folks, get straight to the point. How can a tiny, crappy military district like Yanzhou shatter the world? Folks from Yanzhou and Rongzhou started quarreling online, while people from other continents took in the spectacle. But everyone knew that online talk meant nothing. Who was willing to actually fly over and fight? That was implausible, so they would battle in a different way. See you in Battle of the Century in October. The world-renowned gaming studio Fiery Bird was launching their new game, Battle of the Century, in October. Yanzhou's military turned a deaf ear to all the questions and debates online. They did not concern themselves with the buzz. All they wanted to do was show off their military might to spur on more citizens of Yanzhou to enlist, instead of coming up with other methods. When the recruitment video was released on the internet and went viral, it brought about a sense of patriotism. Duan Qianji's husband, Honglu, also received a commendation during one of the meetings. Just as people needed clothes, a video required accompanying music. Yanzhou's publicity film could not match up with Rongzhou's military recruitment video might in terms of the equipment and scale shown, but the other continents' recruitment videos were not as memorable, and this was largely due to their inferior soundtrack. This was the reason companies spent large sums of money to produce custom-made music for their movies, games, and advertisements. The returns were way greater, far more than the average person could imagine. Yanzhou's military had shown itself in a different light, and sci-fi wing media had benefited from it too. On the other continents, protectionist measures and censorship were put in place with regard to film, music, and other entertainment. Stringent measures were in place to protect the interests of their own continent's entertainment industry. However, the measures only affected commercial items. Yanzhou's recruitment video did not fall under this category. There were no obstacles preventing it from being viewed by anyone. Sci-fi wing media also took the opportunity to announce themselves globally. If not for that short 4-minute soundtrack in the recruitment video, the series by the virtual idol Polar Light would not have spread so quickly. The soundtrack spurred on many people from other continents to search for information regarding Polar Light and the Period of Destruction series. Gaining publicity for his work, and at the same time advertising for his wife, Honglu was very pleased. This was a win-win situation. Even Li Zhao's own God of War had an increased amount of discussions and attention. Zero's agent and the rest of wireless media grabbed the opportunity and promoted the film with added effort. They even managed to deny King of Snipers the award for Best Movie Soundtrack, and they watched as King of Snipers kept dropping points down to a measly 8. Before the premieres of the two movies, most people were certain that King of Snipers would run away with quite a number of awards at Li Zhao's biggest movie awards event. However, when King of Snipers and God of War were simultaneously screened, many people feared that King of Snipers would lose the Best Movie Soundtrack award. Everyone knew that a crappy film like God of War had no way of winning any awards. It was unlikely that Yanzhou's Film Association would give the movie any awards, as they felt it was beneath them. However, if they were to award Best Movie Soundtrack to King of Snipers, it would certainly cause an uproar. Many people could tell that Yanzhou's Film Association would instead hand over the award to a different movie, hence avoiding the head-to-head clash of soundtracks. The investors behind King of Snipers were raging. After all, the soundtrack was one of the top priorities. They had put in a considerable sum to hire a celebrated band to produce their soundtrack. Yet it had all gone to waste, as their plans for the award were wrecked by that imbecile Zero. Some investors had also hired a bunch of professionals to stir and discredit Zero and his team in the media. However, Zero hit back with a public interview. Yes. We may be smelly dogshit. But even a pile of dogshit has its merits. Putting in so much effort on a comprehensive effort to discredit wireless media is a despicable means. Rather, that effort could have been put to a self-reflection of your flaws and faults and finding out where you went wrong. Just being arrogant every day and you expect to be the undisputed best. For all those that criticized God of War and said that the ones who enjoyed God of War were handicapped, Zero shredded them. Just watching and criticizing a movie makes you feel all superior. If you're that capable, why not join the military and embark on a trip to search for new resources? Zero was not afraid of any criticism. No matter how vicious the comments were, he paid no heed. This crappy film he had starred in had a soundtrack that had denied the other side an award. Although not being able to compete in terms of box office sales, ratings, or awards, denying them the Best Movie Soundtrack award was satisfactory and made him happy. It was a heroic deed. He deserved a raise. Zero's agent was equally ecstatic. Not just because they had managed to deny the award, but because the film had broken even and made a profit of more than 60 million. Purely profits. The revenue might be a small matter in other companies in the film industry, but given Zero's tendency to splash out cash to make a crappy movie, the target every time was to break even. This time around, after deducting the expenses, promotion fees, and salaries, they had profited more than 60 million. This was a tremendous improvement. Once in a while, Zero's agent wondered if it would have been even better had they managed to secure the rights to Mission. Although he would quickly forget about it and shift it to the back of his mind. In Yanzhou, Feng Zhao paid no mind to the happenings in the global entertainment circle, instead leading his team to work. Even if Duan Qianji had not said anything, he had already decided to complete production for the fourth movement before Memorial Day so the entire team could have a long and relaxing memorial holiday. Since the rights to the third movement already belonged to Yanzhao's recruitment video, for the masses, they could only listen to the third movement by viewing the video online. Television stations, studios, advertising companies, etc. were not authorized to play it. Doing so would be an infringement, and the offending party would have to go to court. The rights of the third movement had been sold to the Yanzhou military for its use in their recruitment video. Yet Sci-Fi Wing Media did not receive a single cent because Duan Qianji knew that, no matter how much the military offered, it would not even come close to what Zero was willing to pay. Instead, she used the rights of the song to exchange for other benefits. Some were for the benefit of the entire Sci-Fi Wing Media and some were specifically just for Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao was giving Pang Pusong some vocal coaching when he was summoned by Duan Qianji to the top floor office. I have two issues I wish to speak to you about. Instead of having her assistants inform Feng Zhao, she chose to speak with Feng Zhao personally, as it was important. The first matter. Yanzhou military's recruitment video's global circulation brought a lot of attention to the third movement. Duan Qianji opened a projection and showed Feng Zhao a screenshot of an online discussion. Now that the third movement had garnered much reputation, more people realized that they did not understand the lyrics of a portion of the song. Does anyone know what it is? What language is it? Preliminary investigations have shown that it is some sort of ancient language. Possibly from an era before the end of days. We need someone to shed light on the matter. Anyone online who has studied linguistics? Please explain. What Duan Qianji showed Feng Zhao was an online discussion where people from every continent discussed the lyrics, and it was even picked up by the media. Many people who studied music knew that songs were mostly expressed in a few globally fashionable languages. Just that, when the languages mixed and got complicated, it was harder to understand the meaning of the song. Thus, not many people would actually try to decipher the meanings behind the many languages. Still, no matter how many languages were used, there still existed music that was beyond the control of languages, using an unknown language to convey the song. To put it bluntly, it was self-created musical language. This sort of language on its own had no significance. Normally, it would just be for the sake of complementing the melody. Alternatively, it could be some sort of ancient language that had died out. No matter the reason, it would not be able to clearly express much. But it could convey the feelings that the artist had in mind. Whatever the reason, when nobody could figure it out, the remaining option was to ask the composer himself. This was the question on the minds of internet users of every continent. Previously, Duan Qianji had not paid much attention. She had felt that with regards to Feng Zhao's composition, lyrics were secondary. The composition was what attracted people. Therefore, she did not find any issue with the lyrics and hence paid no heed. It was only after the lyrics generated much buzz on the internet that it caught her attention. The company plans to keep this matter under tight wraps to deal with the matter. Therefore, whatever the meaning of the third movement, please do not divulge any information. For the time being, do not give an explanation online regarding the lyrics of the third movement, Duan Qianji emphasized in a serious tone. Don't worry about it. Feng Zhao laughed as he continued, even I do not know what it means. Duan Qianji thought to herself, is he messing with me? I heard it before and felt that it suited this part, so I decided to use it. As for the meaning, I can't help you there, Feng Zhao said. After the end of days, many dialects and languages went extinct. When Feng Zhao had been composing the score, he remembered the words and sounds he'd heard during the all-out war. Some were farewells to family and friends, and others were the roars of battle cries. The people they came from no longer existed. Feng Zhao did not know what they meant, but when he was composing, the words came to him as he was writing the score. Thus, during recording, he then instructed Pang Pusong on how to sing them. Du and Qianji just stared at Feng Zhao, seemingly finding it hard to speak. She had no way of understanding what went through the mind of a talented and eccentric artist. Perhaps only such a person could produce such astonishing music. Cough, that settled, then. Now for the second matter. Du and Qianji scrutinized the expressions on Feng Zhao's face as she said, "Mission belonged to Sci-Fi Wing Media and the rights were given to Yanzhou Military's publicity division. We did not charge them a single cent." Although the matter of entrusting the rights of the third movement to the military had already been discussed with Feng Zhao and he had given his approval, Du and Qianji still felt the need to explain the situation clearly to Feng Zhao. From the looks of it, Feng Zhao was still young and might not have thought things through and instead held back his misgivings. Du and Qianji did not want such a promising talent to the company harboring any doubts. Of course, it was not entirely free in a sense. We managed to obtain quite a bit of privileges, some that cannot be bought. Du and Qianji watched Feng Zhao's expression and behavior closely as she spoke. Yet from the start, Feng Zhao had projected an image of cool and calm, as if the two were just engaged in idle gossip. Du and Qianji had been overthinking things. Feng Zhao was not really fazed by this matter. He had already given his approval. All he had wanted was for the few compositions of his to see the light of day. Profit-wise, it was just not as great as the previous installments. Also, Feng Zhao believed that, as a business person, Du and Qianji knew best how to receive the most profit. Thus, he was not worried about losing out. Du and Qianji would also not have any shortage of cash, and receiving privileges, as she'd mentioned, could not be bought easily. There are some things that I am not liable to tell you, but I can tell you this. Du and Qianji chuckled. Other than privileges, I took the opportunity to obtain 10 positions for you. Military positions. In the new era, there were some things that were unavoidable. Military conscription was one. There were different types of soldiers, different divisions, and different vocations. Some would be assigned to a certain squadron and sent to a remote planet to mine for resources, whereas other positions might require doing simple administrative work in a city without the need for active duty. Du and Qianji saw that this had piqued Feng Zhao's interest and continued, "I have checked up on the Polar Light production team. The others completed their military service during their time at university. Feng Zhao, only you have not completed the mandatory service. When you decide to enlist, you can select a posting they have given, pick one that has rather light duties and even lets you stay in kin. During that 1 year of military service, you can continue to compose your music without many disturbances. Of these types of postings, I have obtained 10. This was her preferential treatment toward Feng Zhao and a chance to do him a favor. There were many ways to complete military service. Those enlisting would be divided according to their physical condition. Those with physically weak bodies would be assigned to less taxing places and, as Du and Qianji had mentioned, did not need to leave the planet. For those with poor health, they might be assigned to a city office to help with easier jobs, such as administration. However, these jobs were also restricted by the postings. The majority of people were thus assigned accordingly, and more than 70% of postings required the person to leave the planet. Every year, many military personnel were sent to foreign planets. Not for holidays, they were required to undergo rigorous training and would need to toil hard there. Therefore, most people were unwilling to get sent there, and families with pressing or dire circumstances would try various methods to get a more relaxed posting. This resulted in many underhanded transactions happening on the black market every year, especially so in remote areas. By manipulating the assignments, one could even use this as a means of revenge. It had already been 500 years since the new era had started and many laws and policies had lost the significance they'd had when they were first introduced. Yanzhou's military was no exception. Officials in the military would sometimes turn a blind eye. After all, the end of days were over, and in order to go on living happily, sometimes corners had to be cut. This situation was not just limited to Yanzhou. It existed in every single continent as well. Feng Zhao had not yet enlisted, yet he already had these postings. He did not need to worry about being assigned to an arduous foreign planet. Du and Qianji also hoped that Feng Zhao would remain in Ken City and be of use to Sci-Fi Wing Media. After all, the nucleus of the Polar Light team was Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao left the rooftop office and headed for the 50th floor, taking advantage of the afternoon's free time to summon his team over. Wasn't the project meeting scheduled for tomorrow? Zhu Wen yawned. He had been about to take his afternoon nap. This is not a project meeting. I have received a number of military postings, Feng Zhao said. Zhu Wen was snapped out of his daze. Is it what I'm thinking it is? Is it the type that grants preferential treatment? Rodney rubbed his palms gleefully. Everyone else stared at Feng Zhao, awaiting his reply. Feng Zhao nodded. That's right. Aha, Zhu Wen let out a strange sound. Why did I clear my military service so early? I could have been living the life and enjoying special treatment. I wouldn't even have to travel to foreign planets to mine for minerals. Zhu Wen, were you also assigned to mining? Zhang Huang asked. Yeah. Where else? Zhu Wen felt his stomach clenching when he remembered his time in the military. Luckily, my family pulled some strings and spent $1 million so that the person in charge would assign me to a planet with a well-developed base. You had it good. The planet I was assigned to had horrible conditions. The weather was bad too, and it snowed all year long. Zhang Huang shuddered as he spoke. Zhang Huang and I completed our military service during year 3 of university. During year 1 and 2, we completed the curriculum for year 3 as well, so when we returned we could directly continue with year 4 and have it not affect our graduation, Wan Yue said. But it seems like Feng Zhao has not served in the military yet. Generally, students would try to complete their military service together with close friends or family. Waiting till after graduation would only serve as a hindrance to their work. During university, the original owner of Feng Zhao's body had been kept busy by composing, dating, and striving for good results and awards. Therefore, he had not completed his military service. I have also completed my service. But boss, Fu Yingtian paused. He had joined the team through Zhu Wen's recommendation and followed Zhu Wen's way of calling Feng Zhao boss. However, he was still not used to speaking to Feng Zhao in the same easy manner as Zhu Wen. Seeing Feng Zhao glance over, Fu Yingtian got a little nervous. My little brother is in his 3rd year of university. He spends most of his days coding and severely lacks exercise. This year, he and his classmates decided to defer their studies and serve in the military. He is really talented in science and technology, it's just that he loses track of time when he gets busy. He frequently stays up all night and his health condition isn't that good. Last year, he also contracted an illness. Boss, the postings that you have, could you sell me one? Hearing Fu Yingtian's words, Feng Zhao nodded. Fu Yingtian felt relieved as Feng Zhao consented. Having joined the Polar Light Project team, he had saved quite a bit of money. It would be worth it if he could purchase a credible posting. He had asked around on the black market, but there were no guarantees and there was a risk of being conned. He knew his own brother best. If his brother was posted to mine at a planet with poor weather and working conditions like the one Zhang Huang had mentioned, chances were he would be sent back halfway through due to illness or health issues. Military service was not that bad to the extent that people died, but according to his experiences, he knew how tough it could be. If it was absolutely fair and people were assigned their positions according to the rules, he would have accepted it with no questions asked. However, now that everyone was using their own means and methods, why should he abide by the rules? He had not done so previously, but this time, given the circumstances, he could let the people he cared about suffer less. Struggling hard, was it ultimately to give his family and himself a better life? How much? Fu Yingtian had only intended to ask how much a posting cost, yet he heard Feng Zhao say, you can have one. Anyone else? Fu Yingtian was flabbergasted. The few people around froze like statues as they watched Feng Zhao. A few seconds later, Zhu Wen took a deep breath. You mean you are giving them to us? Still finding it incomprehensible, he added, really, you giving them to us for free? Feng Zhao nodded. Wait, boss. Do you know the market rate on the black market? Zhu Wen rubbed his eyes, struggling to control himself. 10 million. Without giving Feng Zhao a chance to reply, Zhu Wen continued, on the black market, it is 10 million. The lowest it has ever gone was also 5 million. Those are the ones you have where you can choose your own posting. Back then, I would have gotten one for myself, but I just didn't have the money. Feng Zhao replied to Zhu Wen's incessant chatter with 2 words, I know. I know. That was all. Zhu Wen's eyes widened. Feng Zhao glanced at the people in front of him. Zhu Wen, Song Miao, Peng Pusong, Zheng Huang, Wan Yue, Fu Yingtian, Stiller, Zhang Yu, the 8 of you can have one each. Use it on whoever you see fit. Let me know when you've made the choice. Ha! Zhu Wen roared with laughter. I love you, boss. As he shouted, Zhu Wen went in for a hug. Feng Zhao sidestepped and shoved him into a room. You have all received benefits, make sure you give me good work. Yes. I guarantee all the work will be done to perfection. Zhu Wen was no longer sleepy. He was really excited. If not for the fact that this could not be publicly announced, Zhu Wen would have shown it off in front of his friends. Other departments distributed red packets, here they distributed postings. Military postings that were worth millions. Even if there was no urgent need to use them within the family, it would still not be sold. The postings given by Feng Zhao still had value even if there was no immediate use for them. Peng Pusong wasted no time and made a call to his mother. "Hello, Mom, I obtained a posting. Let uncle and cousin know that they no longer need to worry." Peng Pusong's cousin was his maternal uncle's daughter who was going to be of age soon. Her body was frail and she was frequently sick. His uncle had recently been borrowing money and asked for favors just so that his daughter could get sent to an easier place where she did not have to suffer. Back when Peng Pusong had been a freelancer looking for jobs, his uncle had been of great help. Previously, having the chance to audition at Sci-fi Wing Media was due to his uncle pulling some strings. If not for his uncle, Peng Pusong would not have met Feng Zhao. Peng Pusong was very grateful to him and hence had no qualms about giving the posting to his cousin. 2 days later, Feng Zhao received Peng Pusong and Fu Yingshan's requests and passed them on to Duan Qianji. Duan Qianji was astonished at Feng Zhao's decision to give the postings to his subordinates, but she respected his decision. "I will ensure that this matter is handled properly." "Feng Zhao, what about your choice? Have you decided when to enlist? Which position do you want?" Duan Qianji paid no heed to others. She was only interested in Feng Zhao's decision. "I wish to complete the Polar Light project first," Feng Zhao replied. "That's true. If Polar Light wins the endorsement deal, you will be busy. You will probably be unable to serve your duty this year. You are still young, you will still be eligible to serve in the next couple of years. As long as you still have the posting and it is within the time period, you can enlist in the military as and when you want to." Duan Qianji hoped that, when the time came, Feng Zhao would be assigned somewhere within Ken City, in the vicinity of the company. She had not known that Feng Zhao had spent the last 2 days reading up on mining on foreign planets and had taken a special interest in the most far-off ones. If Duan Qianji had known, she would surely have recalled the postings. After returning to the office and informing Peng Pusong and Fu Yingtian, Feng Zhao filled up the self-feeding machine with food for curly hair before deciding to retreat to his office to rest. That was when he received an incoming message. "Big Zhao, what's up?" Zhang Huang asked as he emerged from the washroom and saw the weird expression of Feng Zhao's. "I'm going to drop by Kin police station." "What happened?" Zhang Huang was worried. Why would he be called to the police station for no reason? "Don't worry. It's not a big deal. I will be back in no time." Hearing Feng Zhao's words, Zhang Huang relaxed a little. "All right. As long as it's nothing." "Feng Sheng has been arrested, that's all," Feng Zhao replied. Feng Sheng was arrested on account of his song theft and alleged assault. He had been struggling since he'd been kicked out of neon culture. He wasn't a talented composer, so he set his sights on music school students. Ken was home to some of the continent's best music schools. Other than the Ken Academy of Music, there were 2 other decent music academies. Quite a few students attending these schools lived on a shoestring budget. Some worked part-time jobs, but competition for music-related part-time gigs was fierce, so some students chose to cover their tuition and expenses by other means. They would not take credit for their work, instead posting excerpts of their songs online to draw buyers and then selling the songs to the highest bidder. That was how certain pop starlets came by their original compositions. It was an open secret in the industry. Feng Sheng was planning on buying a few decent songs from these poor yet talented students. He was more or less blacklisted in Ken, so he would move to a city far from Ken and sell the songs there to turn a profit. He targeted students who were consumed in the creative process yet clueless about the business side of things, cheating them out of the fruits of their labor with extremely low prices. When he had built up a collection, he would flee to another city. His marks were often students whose personalities resembled that of the original owner of Feng Zhao's body. He really got addicted to stealing. The real reason was that this was such a killer shortcut. When he'd stolen the initial 3 songs, next thing he knew he had a new apartment and a company car. The temptation of overnight riches was too seductive. If Feng Zhao hadn't intervened, Feng Sheng would have done just fine. Yet Feng Sheng's latest ploy had failed. A prospective seller had balked at his offer, but he went ahead and tried to steal the student's song anyway and was caught red-handed. The victim petitioned police to use a lie detector on Feng Sheng. Feng Sheng crumbled under the dual pressure of the lie detector test and interrogation and confessed to stealing Feng Zhao's 3 songs. After arriving at the police station, Feng Zhao had his ID checked and was brought to a conference room. This wasn't an interrogation room, so it wasn't as intimidating. The walls were transparent. You could see the movement in a neighboring hallway. The room was also furnished with snacks and refreshments. A man in his 40s with a square face, sitting in the room, raised his head and asked, "Feng Zhao." "That's me." Feng Zhao sat down at the same desk to face the man. Did you bring the items we requested? The man asked. I did. Feng Zhao removed a notebook from his bag and handed it over. The notebook was what the original owner of his body had used to compose. In it, he had jotted down all his scores. When Feng Zhao got the call from the police at the office, he was asked to bring proof that he was the actual composer of the 3 songs. A second officer took the notebook for verification. Current-day technology could determine the rough date the notebook was written in and establish the timing of the compositions. Even though Feng Sheng had confessed to stealing the 3 songs from Feng Zhao, the laws of evidence required further proof. Having the actual compositions was even better. The man who stayed in the conference room, the note-taker, noticed Feng Zhao turning his head and looking outside. He asked with a laugh, "Do you recognize the man in the blue checkered shirt and the 2 folks next to him?" "Who?" Feng Zhao responded as he gazed at the surface of the desk. "The girl who is crying is called Wei Qian. She's a student at one of the local music academies. Feng Sheng almost stole a song from her. If she hadn't buried a signature code in her score, it might very well have been registered under Feng Sheng's name." The man standing in the middle, wearing the blue checkered shirt, is her older brother, Wei Kai. He's a student at the Qin University of Science and Technology. When he found out his sister had been robbed, he started asking around about Feng Sheng's whereabouts. When he got a tip, he tracked Feng Sheng down. He caught Feng Sheng taking pictures of another person's score, so he detained him and called the police. He also borrowed money to hire a kick-ass lawyer. Multiple thefts and assault. I'm guessing Feng Sheng will be locked up for at least 10 years. You should thank them. If they hadn't requested a lie detector test, we might not have found out about the theft of your songs. Since Feng Sheng's hired guns had failed to steal Feng Zhao bracelet and the attempt backfired on him instead, this time, Feng Sheng hadn't dared outsource the job again. He'd done the deed himself, but he was caught in the act. "Hey, how come you didn't sue him when your songs were stolen?" the officer asked Feng Zhao. "I had no proof. I had no case," Feng Zhao responded. "True. This kid's a sly bastard. He never left any concrete proof. Typically, the lie detector isn't used before a conviction." The man gave Feng Zhao a sympathetic look. Knowing your work had been stolen but not being able to do anything about it, seeing someone profit from the fruits of your labor, that had to have been a horrible feeling. There were strict rules governing the use of the lie detector. They could only be used in certain types of cases and the scope of questioning was limited. The officer who processed evidence returned to the room and returned the notebook to Feng Zhao. After the notebook was deemed legitimate evidence, Feng Zhao proceeded to fill out a bunch of paperwork that reverted ownership of the 3 songs from Feng Sheng to himself. Neon Culture had immediately recalled the 3 songs that Feng Sheng had stolen when they got word from the police, transferring their rights to Feng Zhao. "Can I see Feng Sheng?" Feng Zhao asked. "Certainly." Feng Zhao was led to a temporary detention center. "There are headsets on the wall." The officer who'd brought Feng Zhao to the detention center showed him where the headsets were located and left. The Qin police were quite careful about privacy issues. Feng Sheng looked skinny and downcast. He didn't know what had gone wrong. He didn't get it. Was it simply bad luck? Everything was supposed to go according to plan. How come things always went south at critical moments? Feng Sheng had intended to buy Wei Qian's song for 50,000. 50,000 was a bonanza for someone like her who didn't know the market and wasn't calculating. It was enough to cover her tuition for 6 years and obtain certain luxuries. But just when she'd been about to sign the contract, a call from her older brother sowed doubt in her mind. But Feng Sheng hadn't wanted to wait, so he'd stolen Wei Qian's score instead. Who knew that it was planted with her own signature code? What was worse was that, after he stole Wei Qian's score, he'd moved on to another school where he got a student drunk and was about to steal his score. He had wanted to buy it for a bargain, but this student was more business savvy and asked for at least 150,000. Feng Sheng had no intention of shelling out that much money, so he decided to steal again. He had even planned on fleeing Qin that very night, yet Wei Kai had caught him red-handed. If he'd had a choice, Feng Sheng wouldn't have confessed to stealing Feng Zhao's songs, but he'd known he couldn't beat the lie detector test. And if he'd stonewalled, he would have faced an even heavier sentence. After weighing his options, he decided to come clean. There was no escaping jail time now. But in the worst-case scenario, he would be locked up for 10 years, no big deal. He might be released earlier on good behavior. In the end, he would have served 6 or 7 years. He would be only 30 then. There was plenty of time left. Even though he had depleted his savings, he could still mount a comeback. Feng Sheng plotted his next move. He wasn't feeling great, his face was still swollen and he was missing a few teeth. As he pondered, he saw an officer bring in Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao. Big Zhao. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have stolen your songs. Please forgive me on account of the fact that we grew up together. If Feng Zhao forgave him and spoke on his behalf, he could apply for parole. Even if he couldn't shave a few years off his sentence, a few weeks or a few months was still something. After shouting for about a minute, Feng Sheng realized they were separated by a transparent barrier and Feng Zhao couldn't hear him. He scrambled to grab his headset and indicated Feng Zhao to do the same. He thought Feng Zhao didn't know he had to use them. But Feng Zhao stood there motionlessly and stared at him coldly, as if observing a stranger. That reminded Feng Sheng of the look on Feng Zhao's face when he'd returned to his black street in a company car to move after signing with Neon Culture. A lightning bolt flashed through his head. Feng Sheng raised his head and stared at Feng Zhao blankly. It was you. Feng Sheng looked like he'd seen a ghost. When he'd hired thugs to grab Feng Zhao's bracelet and was robbed instead, he'd thought that was on account of Yue Cheng. He thought the thugs had been afraid of Yue Cheng, so they'd turned around and robbed him instead. Now, he realized, it was Feng Zhao. It was Feng Zhao all along. He was the one who had turned the two black street thugs against him. He was the one who had played saboteur every time he was on the cusp of success. Gritting his teeth, he glared at Feng Zhao, mumbling the words. It was you. He finally got it. He'd never suspected because he had always based his thinking on Feng Zhao's old personality, but the Feng Zhao standing before him struck him as a completely different person. Coincidence or luck, that was all irrelevant. Feng Sheng turned pale, his eyes became bloodshot, and he gripped his fingers tightly, as if he was getting ready to rip his headset to shreds. But soon, his gaze went from projecting hatred to fear, because he noticed Feng Zhao laughing at him. It was a casual laugh, but it sent through Feng Sheng a deep chill. He felt frozen all over. If Feng Zhao had set everything up, what awaited him in prison? The more he thought, the more panicked Feng Sheng became. Let me out. Let me out. Feng Sheng yelled at the top of his voice. On the other side of the divider, Feng Zhao had stopped looking at him and left. After leaving the detention center, Feng Zhao picked up his documents and left the police station. He walked along the street and made a right turn, where he met up with Wei Kai, who had already been waiting. I've received your last installment. I've taken care of the legal fees, Wei Kai said. Feng Zad had eyes on Feng Sheng all this time. When he had found out that Feng Sheng was targeting Wei Qian, he reached out to Wei Kai and struck up a partnership. Feng Zhao funded the operation while Wei Kai was in charge of entrapping Feng Sheng. You're not going to tell your sister? Feng Zhao asked. Wei Qian did not know that Wei Kai had set a trap for Feng Sheng so he could steal her song easily. Later on, Wei Kai had seized the moment and caught Feng Sheng while he was stealing another person's score. I'll definitely tell her at some point, but not now. The whole point of this plan was to make her more guarded. As the saying goes, never set out to screw people, but also never let down your guard. She was too gullible, all set to pounce at the bait. Creative types like her don't know how to watch out for schemers. She's only going to be taken advantage of when she enters the real world. I won't always be around to protect her. Thanks for your help, otherwise, I wouldn't have come out of this unscathed. Feng Zhao always carried a knife with him and he had someone protect Wei Kai in secret. Otherwise, Wei Kai wouldn't have emerged unharmed after detaining Feng Sheng. Feng Zhao looked at the time. I gotta run. They're still waiting for me. Next time you wanna scam, deliver justice, remember to count me in. Feng Zhao watched Wei Kai leave and kept walking. For him, Feng Sheng was only a sideshow. He had simply wanted to reclaim the 3 stolen songs as a gesture for the original owner of his body. Zap. A flying car appeared in front of him. Feng Zhao checked the license plate. It was the cab he had ordered. He boarded the car in a hurry. Headed to Yanzhou Cemetery for Martyrs. The driver asked. Yup. It's almost Memorial Day. The cemetery is getting a lot of visitors. I've made 2 runs already. Is it always crowded this time of year? Feng Zhao asked. Of course. You've never been. The Yanzhou Cemetery for Martyrs in suburban Qin is the biggest such cemetery in the continent. It's also one of the world's 12 major cemeteries for martyrs. Word has it that everyone who died in Qin during the period of destruction is buried there. Yanzhou Cemetery for Martyrs mainly housed the bodies of martyrs who died in the Qin war zone during the period of destruction. After the new era was established, many graves were shifted over from other areas of Yanzhou. According to official estimates, there were tens of thousands of graves here, and most of the corpses had been cremated and compressed, taking up very little space. There were some without even a corpse, just leaving behind personal belongings or a personal record with their names. The people of the new era had a custom where, every Memorial Day, they would head to the cemetery for martyrs to pay their respects. Some people felt that paying their respects to the large congregation of martyrs would bless and protect them and make their wishes come true. Others just felt obliged to follow tradition and just came for a walkabout. As it was approaching Memorial Day, there were quite a lot of people visiting the cemetery for martyrs. During the journey there, Feng Zhao took the advice of the driver and got a queue number online. The cemetery for martyrs had a place set up specifically for people to pay their respects. However, the space was limited. Thus, it was always full during the few days around Memorial Day, hence the need for a number. There were too many people here to pay their respects. Feng Zhao's number was quite far back and he had to wait approximately 2 or 3 hours before it was his turn. However, before it was his turn, Feng Zhao had decided to take a stroll through the cemetery for martyrs. As he was approaching the cemetery, from a distance, Feng Zhao spotted the landmark of this area. A huge tombstone exceeding 500 meters in height. The cab driver drove Feng Zhao somewhere close to the cemetery. There were too many people and the parking lots were full. Occasionally, gun-toting police officers could be seen patrolling. At this time every year, there would be large numbers of police officers situated here to maintain peace and order. Seeing this, Feng Zhao alighted and made his way in by foot. No fees were needed to enter the premises. All visitors were subjected to an identity check. As long as there was no issues with the identity and the number of people inside was still within the limits, the person was allowed to enter. The path toward the cemetery was congested, but after entering, it was wide and spacious. This cemetery was huge and there were many different areas. The core cemetery, the period of destruction memorial hall, the plaza, loose graves, public worship area, etc. That huge tombstone belonged to the core cemetery area and it had restricted access. Most people would head to the public worship area to pay their respects before heading to the cafes beside the plaza for some tea and chit-chat. Descendants of martyrs would head to the loose graves or the core cemetery to pay their respects. On both sides of the main street were 2 sidewalks sheltered by trees. The variety of the tree was Longxing Tianluo, a tree that stayed green all year round. Even if a frigid winter season arrived at Qin City, the trees would still maintain a green glow full of vigor. Ahead of the main street was the cemetery's plaza. It was teeming with people, and the shops beside the plaza had a steady stream of visitors. Only when they were paying their respects did people have solemn expressions. Everywhere else, be it walking through the plaza or taking a rest in a cafe, most people were in high spirits. This was by no means disrespect for the martyrs. At the beginning of the new era, a solemn and respectful attitude was the norm when visiting a cemetery. However, it all changed sometime later. There was a high-ranking veteran from the period of destruction who had been approaching the end of his life. Before he died, he had instructed his children and grandchildren to smile and laugh more when they came to pay respects to him in the future. The new era that he and his comrades had fought so hard for was one where he did not want to see his descendants sullen and crying. Little by little, people became less solemn when it came to paying their respects. Memorial Day was, after all, a celebration. Since people came to pay their respects, they brought the same jubilant and festive spirit to thank the martyrs from the period of destruction who had fought for and secured a peaceful new era for them. Having experienced the end of the period of destruction, people of the new era firmly believed that those lying here were their saviors. When paying their respects, the elderly would pray for blessings for the younger generation. The younger generation would hope their wishes came true, hope for peace, hope for fortune, and hope for love. It was still too early for Feng Zhao to head to the public worship area, so he headed in the direction of the huge and tall tombstone toward the core cemetery. Are you a descendant of a martyr? Can I verify your identity, please? The receptionist at the core cemetery asked Feng Zhao. Nope. I'm not. Sorry, sir. Since you are not a descendant of a martyr buried inside, we require a thorough screening of your identity as well as a $1,000 deposit. May I know whether you still wish to enter? The receptionist asked politely. The deposit would not be returned. This restricted most people. The core cemetery held a greater importance and it was not a place where anyone could enter. Thus, this rule was carefully drawn up by the managing board of the cemetery after much consideration. The deposit money collected would not be channeled to anyone's personal pockets but would be used for the maintenance of the cemetery. Yes. Feng Zhao handed over his identification information, and after the screening of his identity, paid the $1,000. The receptionist helped Feng Zhao put on a blue bracelet that would track his position at all times to ensure he did not enter any restricted areas. Most of the people entering the core cemetery area were wearing bracelets of different colors. Blue was for normal people paying their respects. Red bracelets were for descendants of martyrs. White ones were government officials, and black indicated that person was special. Although normal visitors were required to pay a rather large sum, Feng Zhao observed that there were quite a number of people sporting blue bracelets walking about inside. However, under the watchful eyes of police officers and monitoring devices, the people had to think twice even if they wanted to do anything. The huge tombstone was the most prominent landmark in the core cemetery. The people standing next to it appeared tiny in comparison. The gigantic ash-colored tombstone seemed like a pillar supporting the earth. Steadfast and silent, it had braved the weather for more than 500 years, a figure of pride and sorrow. Feng Zhao spent quite some time standing before the huge tombstone. After he had his fill, he went around and headed to the back. Behind the huge tombstone, hiding in the shadows, were a bunch of neatly arranged smaller gravestones. With the huge tombstone as the apex, the smaller gravestones extended behind in a circular manner. Each of these gravestones represented a deceased person. The first row, which was closest to the huge tombstone, had 10 gravestones. These gravestones were larger than the ones behind. The closer they were to the front, the larger they were. The larger ones had more words carved on them and held a greater significance. From the left, the first gravestone belonged to a man known by everyone, General Wu Yan, who helped create the new era. The Yan in Yanzhou was obtained from his name. Other than Huangzhou, where the Alliance headquarters was located, the 11 other continents got their names or dubbed them from the 11 generals who had founded the era. For example, the continent of Lizhou got its name from General Harman Renault. Since then, the Alliance had abolished the rank of Great General as a mark of respect. Wu Yan 17th year of the period of destruction, 56th year of the new era. A founding era general, second in command of the 5th Corps. Recaptured Yanzhou. Wu Yan's gravestone had a brief write-up on his lifetime achievements, mostly on how he ended a period of disaster and helped found the new era in an awe-inspiring and domineering manner. Reading the words that the government had carefully sculpted, Feng Zhao broke into a little grin. Probably no one knew that little brat Wu Yan was actually a scaredy cat. All he was really good at was hiding himself. Continuing forward, the smile on Feng Zhao's face was extinguished. The words on the second gravestone were, Feng Zhao 99th year of the period of destruction, commanding officer of the 5th Corps. The 5th Corps was the predecessor to the Yanzhou military. Created toward the later stage of the period of destruction, the 5th Corps had become the Yanzhou military in the new era. Using the system for tracking time in the new era, from the year the period of destruction had started to the founding of the new era in total, it had lasted for 102 years. 99th year of the period of destruction. In the historical records of the new era, after the difficult first 99 years of the period of destruction, by the 100th year of the new era, the fighting had more or less ceased. Most of the 2 years that followed was disposing of the remnants and, at the same time, rebuilding their homeland. Literally just a step away. Feng Zhao's gaze fell from the gravestone to what was underneath. He was really buried under this gravestone? Feng Zhao was in a complicated frame of mind. He did not even know what background music to play inside his head. Like and subscribe.